so many emails, right?
Yeah,
But then you have the Monday before you have all your meetings on Tuesday.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's good to have the Monday to ease into it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank God it's not Friday. If it was on Friday, I would be crying.
Honestly, today feels like a Friday to me. Like I keep checking my phone. Is it a Tuesday, not a Friday? No luck.
Uh, Not me. I don't feel like that at all. You're on your own there.
No, it's because I did like a week worth of work already, you know?
True. Okay, that's what you mean. I
Mm.
can see it. I can see it. Yeah. Oh man. That means I gotta work harder then.
Oh, no.
Clearly not working hard enough. Oh man.
Those days are coming for you too.
Oh, yay.
Excited.
Yes,
Yeah,
very excited.
very excited. I'm
Well,
sure you'll love it.
oh yeah, so far so interesting is what
Hmm.
I've been saying. So, yeah, we're gonna get into an interesting topic today. One that a lot of people have this question when they first, start out thinking about going through this process. And so I sure do hope we have a lot of folks come in today. That'll be cool.
Yeah, and I think this is something that even when I'm doing like the IC, the consultation,
Yes,
this is like a very, very repeated question that you get.
of course.
And I think it's good to like share this knowledge with people so they have like a more like a better idea of like where potentially they would be spending their money on as they make their way through their separation.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really insightful for a lot of people today attending this
Yes.
session.
I sure hope so. And it's good that, you have done ICs. So this having these conversations is not unfamiliar to you. And I mean, you practice as well. So I'm sure that you have to deal with questions like these all the time.
And this is something that like directly impacts people, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
time, the decision that they will make, the costs play a big role. I see settlements going ahead because, the cost consequences of going through litigation is something that's just not worth it. So,
Whoa, whoa there, Shanza. We haven't started yet.
sorry.
Don't give it all away. We still
Uh-oh.
got a couple more minutes.
Mm.
Oh, no, 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 unzip. We can
Okay,
still talk.
unzip halfway.
Oh my gosh, too funny. No, but yes. Okay, so you guys can see, as you guys can see, we have a lot to
A
talk
lot to
about.
talk about today.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
it's
yes,
just the
indeed.
two of us today too, so it's gonna be a
Yeah,
nice little chat.
a nice little chat. Yeah, usually we have a friend, but it's just us two today holding it down. Um, I think you'll see us semi-regularly. Sometimes Shanza will leave and not be with me, but I'll be here for the most part. And yeah, be hosting these. Hopefully in a couple months I'll be an old pro. I still get nervous. So nervous, but it's okay.
You're great though at these, so.
Oh, bless you. Well, oh, we still got lots of time. Yeah, so I'll just let people wait for a few more people to roll on in as we take talk towards 5 p.m.
Hmm. I see people trickling in, so
Lovely. Hmm. Do anything fun this weekend, Shanza?
I went snow tubing.
Oh, did
I
ya?
did, yes.
Oh, that's fun.
For the first
What
time
a,
in a long time.
yeah, I can't tell you when last I've been. That and skating. I haven't been skating in forever.
I think I remember you telling us in another setting that you are
Yeah,
a bit of a homebody when it comes to winters, right?
you are right. That is me. Yeah. But I do, it's funny. I do enjoy skating. I just don't like, I'm not a huge fan of the cold, as you know. But I do enjoy skating. So that's one activity that I would like to, you know, take part in a bit more, um, in the upcoming winters. And maybe, I don't know, I've been thinking about skiing a lot. Have
I
you
can
been?
see.
You can't?
I've been on the bunny hill. Does
Oh,
that count?
no, I haven't been before and I would like to try. I used to watch this show all the time called Rocket Power, and they were like these kids that would ski, snowboard, skateboard, surf. So they covered all the seasons. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be like them. Never happened. So
I
maybe in
think
my,
you did take on pickleball or something.
I did take on Ultimate Frisbee.
Oh,
Yeah,
that.
I played for a bit. It was fun. I haven't played in the winter though, because there's indoor leagues as well, but I haven't
Mhm.
done that. Um, just been regular old gym, just keeping it boring.
I think articling is keeping you busy too.
There's that as well. There's that too.
But it's always worth it to take up time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It will be. It will be. Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like we're just about there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll start with the intro. Um, okay. All right, welcome everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Family Law Now After Hours. My name is Jodeen. I'm an articling student here at Russell Alexander Collaborative Family Lawyers. And as one of the newest members of the team, I am so grateful to have already had the privilege to gain experience in both collaborative and litigation files, which have given me valuable insight into the diverse approaches to family law. Today, I'll be facilitating our discussion um, between me and Shanza and you. Uh, today's topic is how much will my divorce cost? And if you were here for the little preamble that we had, the little chat beforehand, you may have got some, some insight into what we'll be talking about today. Um, but I would like to just start with a disclaimer that the purpose of these series is to discuss general information on separation, divorce, and family law matters. Any information here should not be construed as legal advice. This is simply legal information and just a casual discussion that we're having here. Please use our Q&A feature that you'll see in the Zoom bar down there to submit your comments and questions. And if you have any questions regarding your specific matter, you can call our office or any lawyer in your area to book a consultation to receive more tailored advice. As I said earlier, this is general information about family law topics. So today I have with me counsel Shanza Sohail. Thank you for joining us, Shanza. Shanza is a dedicated family lawyer with a strong focus on compassionate and effective legal representation. Her background in business management enhances her strategic approach to legal matters. Shanza excels in negotiation, achieving favorable settlements through strategic dialogue and strong advocacy for her clients. She prioritizes clear communication, ensuring that clients are informed and empowered throughout the legal process. Thanks, Shanza, for being here with us. Um, so if you were with us last week, we were joined by the lovely Nicole Harris, who's our intake manager here at Russell Alexander, Collaborative Family Lawyers. The topic was how to prepare for an initial consultation. And during our chat, we had some extremely insightful information, and Nicole was great. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. And you can visit russellalexander.com//family law now and have a look at that recording as well as any other family law topics that we've covered over the. How long have we been doing this, Shanza? How long has this series been on the go?
Hasn't been a year already?
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you started with Russ,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a year before.
Really?
So, second year?
Mm-hmm. We're in our
Yeah.
second year.
Wow. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that have been covered. So, yeah, please have a peruse, look at those topics. As we discussed last week, I just want to give like a bit of a primer into the kinds of costs that what you might face during the family law process. So as we discussed last week, the first cost that you'd likely incur in the family law process is the cost for the initial consultation. Now that typically lasts for like 30 minutes to an hour. And this is an opportunity to gauge if the lawyer is a good fit for you, for your needs, as well as it also provides a lawyer with a chance to gather information and canvass the potential issues that may arise in your matter. Now, you should definitely always ask the intake team about the cost for that, because sometimes there is a cost. I know at our firm there is a cost. And yeah, I think it's $300, I think, or consult or IC. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But you can always double check with the intake team. So, yeah, that was a great discussion. Definitely recommend that you have a listen. Today's topic is all about money matters. And as we know, divorce can be expensive. But understanding the factors that influence costs and taking proactive steps to manage expenses can make the process less costly. Legal fees, court costs, and additional expenses such as expert reports can quickly add up, especially in contested divorces. However, by choosing cost-effective resolution methods, setting realistic budgets, and maintaining clear communication with your lawyer, you can minimize the financial strain while ensuring your legal needs are met. So proper preparation and prioritization of key issues are important to help you avoid unnecessary expenses and to streamline the process. So I would probably start by setting clear expectations. Discuss the upper limits of your budget with your lawyer or the legal team that you're working with. And express to them what your financial situation is. Be upfront with your lawyer about what you can realistically spend, as this will help them tailor an approach to your case. And ensure that the legal strategies align with your budget and priorities. So also understanding the lawyer's billing process is so key to for you to estimate your overall costs for your divorce. Whether the lawyer charges hourly rates or offers flat fees for specific services, knowing these details enables you to allocate your funds appropriately and avoid financial strain. Also helps you to avoid um, uh, unexpected expenses as you familiarize yourself with the fees that are usually outlined in a retainer agreement, which I'll talk about a bit later. You can also ask for updates on your matter. So reports and invoices that you can ask for through the account specialist or ask your lawyer directly. That way you can ensure that you're always aware of what's going on your file. Um, now I'll go into just discussing fee structures. Um, that is hourly rates, flat fees, and as I mentioned before, the retainer agreement. So most family lawyers actually charge by the hour with rates that vary based on the lawyer's experience and maybe even their location. Um, the time spent on consultations/meetings, uh, document preparation, negotiations, and court appearances will all be billed. This makes it crucial for you to understand how lawyers construct their fees and the billing practices of the firm so that you can better anticipate and manage these costs. So I think it might be helpful to maybe just define some terms so that we know what we're talking about. So the word retainer is it has a few different meanings. So it could be the act of retaining a lawyer. So, signing on and saying, okay, that's my lawyer. They're going to represent me and provide legal services. It also can refer to the contract that outlines the essential terms of the professional agreement with the client. And then it could also refer to the initial fee or deposit that's paid to the lawyer in advance to secure the lawyer's services. The lawyer services in the near future and against which you can detract future fees and disbursements. Now, what is a retainer agreement? I think I kind of mentioned that already. I think it's also important to note that it also has your obligations outlined in it as well. So what is it expected of the lawyer-client relationship? Um, so for example, you may need to you may be required to provide up-to-date information and instructions to your lawyer as to how you proceed on the case. So that could be outlined in your retainer agreement. I definitely recommend taking your time to read your retainer agreement and not just sign it, because that is what will primarily govern the lawyer-client relationship between you and your lawyer. So the money retainer, which tends to be the initial fee, it's important to know that this is not a flat fee or an estimate for the cost of your work. The money retainer is a source of payment for your account, which you ultimately end up replenishing as the lawyer does their work. There's a lot of work that happens in the background. So you might see that if you regularly check your account, you may see that the retainer is decreasing. And that's because as the lawyer does work, that those charges are taken off of the money in trust. So the reason why I mentioned replenishing is because you don't want to run the risk of there not being enough money for you to cover the services that the lawyer is doing or already performed or the next steps that could really delay the completion of the work. Also about retainers, the unused portion of the retainer will always be refunded to you upon the completion of the file. Um, and the lawyer will inform you of of next steps. So it's important to know that you are responsible for replenishing the retainer, and and any fees or disbursements that's not covered by the initial retainer. Fees include the amount you're charged for legal services that you receive. Common billing methods can include hourly billing rates, which I mentioned before, fees for each stage of your matter, which that would be outlined in your retainer agreement as well. And there are also block, fixed, flat fees for particular tasks. You will need to discuss the billing arrangement you that your lawyer has and what applies to your file. At Orphan, we do hourly rates. And each of us, depending on our experience level and or position, will have different rates. And that will be outlined in your retainer agreement as well. You'll find the breakdown in your retainer agreement. Now, I think the next thing I'm going to talk about, because it's the two of us, you're going to hear me I'm going to monologue for a little bit. So I'm so sorry. Hope you don't get tired of my voice. But the next topic, before I move on, is there anything you would like to add, Shanza, just to break it up a little bit here?
No, I think that was a very detailed overview. You went into the different fee structures, and I think really what generally I want the clients to understand is it's an hourly fee, and the retainer amounts are not fee for services. So, as work goes on your file, the money keeps coming out from the retainer, and then that needs to be topped up, if there's no more work that needs to be done on the file.
Thank you, Shanza. Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the most common misunderstandings is that the retainer is supposed to cover the entirety of the cost, but it's not a flat fee. It is simply money to secure the lawyer services, and then from that, we'll start charging, and the funds will go down as that work continues. So sorry. Yeah, so that is an important distinction to make. Flat fees could be like, I don't even know if we do flat fees, but I do know that some firms might do a flat fee for an uncontested divorce, or maybe if you need like a notary or something like that. So that has like a fixed cost that doesn't change. But of course, this is something that should be outlined in your retainer agreement if it's a flat fee versus an hourly rate. Now, unfortunately, there is no precise arithmetic assessment to determine the cost for your matter. And it wouldn't be feasible or advisable, I think, to attempt to do so because there's so many things that can go into cost, so many things that can go into that can affect what you are ultimately billed for. Um, so as I said, the most common billing method is hourly rates. And these rates are charged for work performed by the lawyers, the law clerks, articling students sometimes, and even in some cases, summer students, it depends, who will be assisting with the matter. And from the time spent, who will be assisting with your matter. To keep track of all of this, we tend to use a handy digital timekeeping system that records our activities on your matter, and it will include things like meetings in terms of the things that you we will typically bill for is meetings, phone calls, emails, preparing correspondences, memoranda, um, drafting documents, court documents, attending court, research, and travel. So those are some of the costs you can expect to see on, or expenses you can expect to see on your invoice. Clients tend to ask, how much will it all cost? And as I said, it all depends. It could depend on the time that's spent on your behalf and the services which are performed, or expenses or and abilities maybe to do a specific task. Maybe we have to bring in an expert, and that could cost. So like an accountant, if your files are, if your finances are more complicated. The complexity of the matter is also a factor. Uh, and the other side is a factor as well, because if they're using tactics that delay or prolong the process, that of course will affect the amount of time spent on the matter. And also whether or not we can get to a settlement, or if we have to end up going to court, that will also affect the ultimate cost. So I'm gonna pass it over to you now, Shanza. Give myself a break and let you take the floor and tell us a bit more about uh what are you telling us about right now, Shanza? You're telling us about accounts for legal fees, understanding filing, drafting, court appearances, and things like
Right, right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we talk about legal fees and accounting for legal fees, there are several different areas where costs can accumulate throughout the divorce process. So we are looking at different type of fees here, right? We're looking at filing fees. We are looking at, Jodeen, as you kind of went into this, the time spent by the lawyer. So drafting any legal documents, drafting emails, letters. We may be looking at court appearances. Um, Let me break it down a bit more. So when I talk about filing fees, those are unavoidable. These are admin fees. So these fees cover the cost of submitting various legal documents to the court. So for example, if you have a separation agreement, you're obtaining a simple divorce, then there's filing fees for filing the application for divorce order. There's filing fee for the affidavit for divorce. There's a filing fee for the certificate of divorce. So these are filing fees. They're standard across Ontario, and these are paid to the court. And these fees are there to ensure that your documents are submitted, they're filed, they're processed within the court system. So these are not your lawyer fees per se, but these are your legal fees.
Mhm.
So that's one type. Then we're looking at your lawyer fees. Lawyers charge for their time. So I'm not gonna repeat much of what you said, Jodeen, but really when it comes to lawyer fees, we're looking at like I said, emails, letters, if you're drafting a separation agreement for you, um, right? This is true if you're not in court. So, this is what the lawyers are doing. If you're in court, then in addition to what I just mentioned, so emails, letters, negotiations, we do all of that. Plus, we take care of your court file as it progresses through the court system. So we are drafting your pleadings, your application, if you are the one who's commencing an application. If you're the respondent, then we are drafting your answer. If there's a motion to change, then we are drafting the motion to change so that we can seek a change to a court order or an agreement. Motion materials, if you are within the litigation process, you get served with a motion, or you're the one who is commencing the motion. So all of the drafting, this is specific to to litigation. So all of this the lawyer will do for you. And this is a very time-consuming task for lawyers, so it can be costly for the clients because these documents, they require attention, they require detail, they require legal expertise. And when I say that, it requires effort, I'm not just talking about drafting the documents. The lawyers need to ensure that all legal requirements are met. We want to make sure not only are these documents properly worded, we want to be prepared with any regulations or any research work that needed to be done to identify what our position could be in our in the proceeding, right? Researching relevant case law, making sure we're getting all the information from the clients, making sure we have disclosure. So all of this is part of the process. And as you're going through the court system, you continue to negotiate with the other side, right? So all of this is ongoing work that the lawyer will do on the file, and they will charge you for all this time. Finally, I think I mentioned court appearances early on. So when I say court appearances, this means the cost of actually attending the court appearance. And again, this doesn't just involve appearing on the day of the hearing, but it involves significant preparation beforehand. If it's a case conference, we're preparing case conference briefs. There's time spent reviewing the materials, organizing, strategizing, there's time spent negotiating. If you are going to a case conference, then there is a requirement to negotiate beforehand. So all of that will go into the type of work and the type of legal fees that that you will incur as you make your way through this process.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't just stop with case conferences. There's also settlement conferences before, and then there could be multiple case conferences too. So it really all depends on the complexity of your case and the other side as well, their willingness to negotiate and maybe find some common ground. Um, Thank you, Shanza. Can you tell us a bit more about out outside costs? So not costs that are generated by the lawyer or not necessarily legal fees that aren't generated by the lawyer. Can you tell us about some other costs that might pop up on client invoices?
Yeah, so other outside legal costs, I'll talk about a few. So let's start with maybe alternative dispute resolution. So there are files that will attempt mediation, for example. There are files with children a lot of times where parties will attend counseling. So tech like and as you if you are going through mediation, it doesn't naturally occur to you that this is something you might be paying for as you go through the litigation, or maybe even counseling, right, if you're dealing with a parenting case. So it's important to think about these costs as well. And by mediation, I'm referring to alternative dispute resolution methods. These can be extremely beneficial in reaching a resolution without going to court, but they do come with their own set of expenses, which parties need to be mindful of. So for mediation, there's usually the cost of the mediator. That is a professional who helps facilitate communication between both parties, and this professional guides them towards a solution. Mediation can be a more cost-effective option compared to traditional litigation. It still involves fees for the mediator's time, so the cost of the mediation can vary. It depends on the mediator, their experience. It depends on the complexity of the case. It depends on the number of issues that the mediator needs to assist the parties with. A lot of times mediation costs are split unless the parties agree otherwise. There are also free mediation services available through the courthouse, but I believe typically they're based on your income and you need to qualify for these services. So definitely worth a try to check them out. So that's mediation. A lot of times people will try alternative dispute resolution because it is something that's a lot less costly. It's a more amicable way of reaching a solution. So it's definitely worth a try in a lot of cases. But you do need to be mindful of you want to speak to your lawyer if you have one to see if mediation is something that could be helpful on your file. Um, I mentioned counseling, so let's say sometimes people will choose to pursue counseling. Could be for emotional support, could but a lot of times it's to help with parenting arrangements. But if you are going through family therapy or parenting counseling, then there are additional costs that are involved. But generally, attending therapy and counseling can be very helpful in resolving issues and improving communication. Again, costs will vary depending on the type of therapist. Um, but these costs you wanna consider them before you hire um, hire your counselor just to make sure that you're aware of how costly the process is going to be for you. Um, Generally, if you do end up paying for, these third services, um, I know in the short term it may feel like you're paying more outside of your legal fees to to involve these professionals, but a lot of times in the long run, it saves costs because a lot of times it's going to um, I mean, if you're not going through these services, then you might find yourself in prolonged litigation. And that will be a lot more costly than paying for mediation or attending counseling or having experts come in. Um, right? Because having these professionals come in can really reduce the amount of time spent in conflict, which in turn will reduce the overall costs of the legal process. And I think overall, these processes can help preserve relationships, if you are able to, you know, um, stay outside of court, if you're able to communicate, then in the long run, it's really important for children, for parents to be on talking terms. So a lot of times, if you're able to attempt ADR, and if it is successful, then it's always worth a try.
100%. Or I don't know if people tend to realize that ultimately we hope to get to settlement because it really gives parties more control over their situation than if we go through the entire court process because at that point you have a judge who is on not in your relationship or was not in your relationship that is giving their judgment from what they see as an outsider. So, through settlement, through negotiation, through mediation, if you're able to work with the other side, you 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 can have more control, more input in the process versus when it ends up going to litigation. So we want to keep you away from litigation if possible. For those reasons and the reasons Shanza mentioned, because it does get costly. So, Shanza, I know you sometimes, when once the client has a lawyer, sometimes we have to talk about other third parties, experts maybe. So, can you please talk about what kind of expert fees may come up?
Yeah, there can be expert fees involved depending on the case. In family law cases, those that involve significant assets or financial complexity, accountants, appraisers, financial professionals, family professionals, all of these experts can play a big role in ensuring that these matters are accurately assessed and properly managed.
Mhm.
So an accountant might be needed to review, for example, financial statements, tax documents, or to provide insight into the evaluation of certain assets. Um, this is particularly common in cases that involve complex business interest, for example, or investments, or when determining things like the net family property value. The cost of hiring an accountant will vary depending on the scope of work, and the type of report that we may ask them to generate. Again, this will be specific to the issues that you're dealing with, and if an accountant is needed or their expertise is needed to help identify or help understand the information that's available, and to make sure it's properly canvassed and addressed within your family law file. Appraisers for cases where there's real estate, businesses or other high value assets that needs to be appraised. An appraisal will be, if you have the matrimonial home, for example, that needs to be maybe bought out or sold, then you will need an appraiser to determine the market value of the house. Sometimes people will just use opinion letters from real estate agents. It
Mhm.
depends on the parties and the type of, communication that they have. If they're more amicable, then an opinion letter will do. But in some cases, an appraiser is required to come in and provide an appraisal on the value of the property. Again, appraisal fees will vary widely depending on the type of asset that's being appraised. Um, yes, so that's on appraisals. Financial professionals, financial professional may be helpful, when we're dealing with managing or dividing assets, or we're dealing with tax, particularly, if there might be concerns about retirement savings or pensions, or a lot of times people will have a financial professional come in when it comes to find future planning. Um, these professionals can offer strategies that can help both parties move forward, um, you know, taking into account their financial goals, and taking into account both parties' financial well-being. If you're in the collaborative process, then a lot of times financial professionals come in, family professionals come in, and it can be very helpful having these professionals guide the parties through their settlement negotiations, and having a neutral third party there to manage the conversations or the communication or the negotiations that are ongoing. I mentioned family professionals, um, so those will assist with parenting plans. So yeah, these are some examples of, some experts that can come in. And again, this will be costs in addition to what you're paying your lawyer, or the filing fees you might be paying for your divorce.
Thank you, Shanza. That was yeah, that was pretty informative. So like you can, if you have like a really huge gem, you're gonna need an appraiser for that because lawyers, we don't have the skills to tell you how much that's worth and and how to go about, allocating the worth of it. So that's just in case you have something like that. Um, can you also tell us, Shanza, a bit more about the costs that might be involved with parenting evaluations, maybe?
Mhm.
Because like parenting coordinators and things like that, what
Yeah.
are the professionals that we tend to use within the practice a lot.
hmm So for parenting, when there are disputes for parenting time decision making, that's when parenting evaluations might be required, to help the court or the parties, depending on, if you're in court or not, to help determine what arrangement would be in the best interest of the children. So a parenting evaluation or assessment, it's typically conducted by a professional, and a professional could be a child psychologist or a social worker. They usually come in, they speak to both parents, they evaluate their ability to care for the children, and their ability to make decisions that are in the best interest of the children. They will meet with Each parent individually, they will meet with the children. And the whole purpose of this evaluation is to figure out what the family dynamics are, what are the children's needs, or what are the parents' abilities to care for the children. And these evaluations are generally only needed in more complex cases where
Mm.
there is dispute about parenting time and decision making, um, or if there are concerns about the children's well-being. Not every case will require this type of evaluation, but some will. If the parties are able to come to an agreement between themselves,
Mm.
then they might not need a parenting evaluation completed. But if there is a lot of disputes, a lot of disagreements, then a lot of times the professionals will come in to assist the parties. And these evaluations can be somewhat costly, but they do provide a detailed, objective assessment. And this assessment can be very helpful in determining what the parenting arrangement should be going forward. Um, and especially if there's a lot of dispute and the parties are just not able to agree, then having this neutral report can really, really guide the conversation if the parties, are in an impasse. And the insight provided by the professional can help both parents and the court make informed decisions. So, a lot of times people will retain the services of a professional outside of court. Again, it will have to be voluntary and on consent. And a lot of times people will decide to share the fees for the professional or for the report, depending on, what kind of assistance the professional is providing. But sometimes when you're in court, then these reports are ordered by the court, right? And they are specifically referred to as the voice of the child report. So depending on, whether you're in court, whether you're outside of court, the costs will differ. But these reports can be very, very helpful if there are disagreements on parenting.
Oh yeah, for sure. It can really help move things forward. As you said, it's neutral and objective rather than subjective, which when you're dealing with opposing sides, there's a lot of subjectivity happening. So it's good to inject some objectivity in there. So another cost that comes up, and Shanza kind of mentioned some of these costs already with kind of like filing. Filing is the costs pertaining to filing, things that we cannot change. They are what they are. The court puts a price on these requirements, and usually what ends up happening is that the lawyer pays this, or the firm pays this on behalf of the client, just to keep the ball rolling, to ensure that the the matter moves forward with little delay. Other administrative costs can include uh, copying court documents, maybe. We don't really have a whole lot of that anymore because everything is kind of digital. But if we do need, say if you're going to trial, there are still requirements for printing things. If we do need to print things or copy things, any postage that could be involved, office expenses as well, those are included in administrative costs. So if you need a server to serve the opposing party because you can't serve yourself, that is a cost that an administrative cost that will show up on your invoice as a disbursement. These are these costs are referred to as disbursements. I should have said that from the jump. So it can include the administrative filing fees and maybe even travel costs, photocopying documents, things like that. So I guess the next topic would be to talk about the length and complexity of the cases, Shanza, and how that may affect the total cost. I think we have kind of been hinting at this throughout.
Yeah,
So, yeah, but
yeah.
if you can, please
Yeah,
tell
I'll
us
just
about.
expand a little bit. You did mention how the length and complexity of a case have a direct impact on the total cost. The
Yes.
longer you are negotiating, the longer you're in court, the more expensive it will be. Um, so when I say complexity first, um, complexity of the issues involves plays a big role in how long the process will take. So if the case involves straightforward issues, such as agreeing on child support, where the law is very clear, or maybe a simple proper division of property, then it will generally take less time and, as a result, less cost. But if there are more complex issues to resolve, such as parenting disputes, there's domestic abuse, there's assets, high value assets, there's business valuations that needs to be completed, there's contested support, spousal support. So those cases will naturally take longer to resolve, and that will increase costs. So the more difficult the issues are, or more contentious they are, the more time will be spent on negotiations and meetings and legal work. I know a lot of times people um, sometimes say stuff like my friend got divorced and it didn't cost them as much, right? So every case is different. Everyone is dealing with different issues. No one case is, similar to another. So it's really hard to anticipate how the negotiations are going to unfold or how expensive the process is going to be.
For sure.
And I spoke on times when the negotiations, so again, this is something that drives the costs quite a bit. If both parties are willing to work together, the case may proceed more quickly with fewer complications. But if negotiations are prolonged, if one party is refusing to negotiate, there's a lot of back and forth exchanges over terms, or if one party is unwilling to compromise, then again, this is going to add time to the process. It's going to add to the costs. Sometimes it's not your client who's unwilling to compromise. Sometimes it's the other party, and it may seem unfair, but even if one side is not negotiating, then the cost increases for both parties. If the case moves to court hearings, then these proceedings will also impact the time and cost quite a bit. Each appearance involves a lot of preparation from the lawyers, as well as the actual time spent attending the court appearance. A single case conference may take hours. I was in court today for quite a long time. Or it could be, short, but you don't know. And a lot of times when you are in court, then these costs really add up. And this is again filing fees and everything else that you talked about, Jodeen. That's on top of all of these costs that I just mentioned. So a lot of times, um, yeah. So this is how the complexity and the length of time will affect how costly your divorce is going to be for you.
100%. So, I know that the way that we've been speaking about costs can be a little bit scary. However, there are ways to make your divorce a bit more cost effective. You can, as we've mentioned throughout, consider settlement, as this is a cost effective approach. Um, Reaching an out of court agreement is probably one of the more effective ways to save on divorce expenses, especially like if you are in a situation where the parties can agree on key issues like parenting, um, property division, and support. If you can throw that all into an agreement, then that can save a lot of time, as Shanza was saying, of having negotiations back and forth between the lawyers behind the scenes with the with the opposing party and you and your at loggerheads, and that's just gonna drive up the cost. So if you're more in a space where you can agree on key issues, big issues, then you're gonna spend far less because it requires less legal involvement, less likelihood that you need to make court filings, less prolonged negotiations, and the avoids the need for like additional consultations. So if you can enter into negotiations on major issues, perhaps that's the way that you should go. Now, it's not to say that it's as easy as that. Of course, like sometimes you just can't. Sometimes, there's huge issues that you don't agree on, and you're going to have to negotiate a bit. But where you can find common ground, do find common ground. That way you lessen the issues that uh, you have to contest the other party on. Because the longer the disputes continue, as Shanza mentioned, the higher the costs become. Because as we know, like the more time the lawyers spend on it, the more they will bill. So yeah, anything that you can agree on, do agree on. Another way in which you can lessen the cost is if you consider a limited scope retainer, which provides a more flexible option. So um, this will help you if you're looking to reduce your expenses by unbundling some services. So it kind of just means to uh to focus in on maybe the lawyer just needs to draft a separation agreement for you, or maybe you just need them to help you prep for your upcoming case. So it really helps the client to where they have a lawyer or legal help to provide some legal research, advice, document preparation, maybe representation in mediation or something, but the lawyer is not on the record. So the lawyer is not gonna, for all intents and purposes, you are self-represented, and the lawyer does not go on the record to say that they are acting on your behalf. That will save you a lot of money, but also it really does require a lot of attention to detail, and for you to be in control of your file. So you really need to be up to date on everything that's going on, because all the correspondence with the courts and the other side will go through you, not the lawyer. So it comes with its pros most definitely, but you also have to be mindful of the responsibility that you're taking on in that process as well. And um, another process that is extremely helpful, which we do have a lot of lawyers that do this here, is the collaborative family process. And it is a cooperative resolution in that it has, so both parties will, and their lawyers will commit to resolving the disputes cooperatively without going to court. So, and then you will also have a team of neutrals. I think Shanza mentioned this earlier about the other professionals that we might loop in. And as Shanza mentioned, that it might seem like the initial costs are a lot, but in the long run, it does save because litigation is extremely unpredictable and extremely emotionally draining, which could also be a cost to you. Let's not forget those kinds of costs as well. So the key features uh, of the collaborative process is that there's open communication and information sharing. You focus on finding and creating mutually acceptable solutions, and you try to avoid the cost of court and litigation as much as possible. So this process really is designed to encourage resolution and resolution outside of the mutual resolution outside of the court process. So it may seem like it's a big cost to take up front, but in the long run, as we've mentioned, it can be and usually is more cost effective. I would just say it is more cost effective. It generally is more cost effective. So yeah, so that's those are some of the approaches that you can take to really kind of manage the costs in your matter. But I think if you have a lawyer that's on the record, I think one of the most important things is just continue to communicate with your lawyer and the law firm, and just ensure that you're reviewing your statement of accounts or your bill. And you have regular updates on that. If that's something that you you come to an agreement with, or you can just, I think even here at our firm, you can reach out to Vicky. Vicky's great. I spoke to her in preparation of this, and she's like, ensure that you tell people that they can reach out to me if they want reports. And that's important because you are afforded, you are not afforded, you are entitled to transparency on what your money is going to on these files. And that's why we track our time. That's why we docket our time. So you can see where your money is going. And that will regular updates, or checking in on your file can really help you to see where the money is going, what maybe you can avoid, and or lessen frequency of, to try and manage the cost of your file. So yeah, those are my little tidbits there. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. So we're at the end of our session today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Following the session, there will be a brief survey, and you can share your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions for future topics that you'd like us to cover and explore. Please take the time, because your feedback is greatly appreciated. Now, here's another cost-saving measure. Book now to take advantage of the opportunity to have a complimentary consultation with one of our lawyers. Please contact our intake team at intake, one word. Please contact our intake team at russellalexander.com and provide the code 2025 RIA to schedule your appointment. Registration is now open for our next event. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, you can go to russellalexander.com/family law now to see all the other events we have in store for you, the other topics that we're going to cover. I'd like to thank Shanza so much for taking the time to hear me ramble on. Um, I appreciate your insight, Shanza, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. That was After Hours. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Jodeen. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. Bye bye, everyone. Have a good